Want to know one of the most difficult parts about basing an integral part of one of your reoccurring series off of something that fans gave you? Oftentimes, there is absolutely no way to get in contact with them to get those things again. So what does one do when that happens? We improvise. That's right, we have brand new regret and approval stickers. There's a possibility that I made this on the website that I make all my merch on, so let me know if you guys want some. Anyway, welcome back to Regrettable Superhero of the Week, the weekly not weekly show where I pick one character at random out of the League of Regrettable Superheroes and then I run them the fuck down. Let's see who we are getting today. I'm really hoping for just someone that... No way, no way, no way. Oh my god, I've been waiting for this one! This name is on the cover of the book, and I have wanted to do it since the first fucking video! Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Hormone. Oh, this better be good. So where's the superhero? This seems like a fine pulp story, but I don't... Is Dr. Hormone just some dude in a suit? There has to be more than that, right? There's got to be more than that. I didn't know Little Orphan Annie was in this. This is a horror story. Dr. Hormone was created by Robert Bug in Popular Comics #1 of Dell Comics in August of 1940. And if this book came out any time other than the 1940s, Dr. Hormone would be a villain. You see, Dr. Hormone, yes, that's his real name, no, we don't get a first name, was a very, very old scientist who experimented on hormones his entire career. However, on his deathbed, he took a pill called a youth hormone that aged him backwards to the spry young age of 25. Why exactly 25? Anyway, he goes on adventures with his granddaughter, Janie. Presumably Janie Hormone. These are... Oh my god, why is that his name? And now for a short list of medical crimes Dr. Hormone commits. He transforms multiple babies into full-grown men. He transforms an entire troop of Boy Scouts into an army of soldiers. He turns an entire nation into half-human, half-animal hybrids so that they terrify the hell out of an invading army and scare them away. At one point, he literally experiments on a dying infant. How is this man not a villain, you may ask? Well, it's the 1940s, and while Dr. Hormone doesn't want to get involved in real-world politics, he does fight the nation of, Nausea. And I'm quoting here, aggressive warlike nation was the Doctor's persistent enemy throughout the remainder of his adventures. In the 1940s. The Nauseans. In fact, his final adventure is him making sure that Texas is free of Nauseans. Oh, and how could I forget their hooded allies, the Klan? Who knows? Maybe that one. Probably that one. We'll never know, really. Anyway, randomly at the end of the story, Dr. Hormone is contacted by an extra-dimensional Roman being. His name is the Thinker. He gives Dr. Hormone superpowers for a bit, he takes out the Nauseans, and then is transported outside of time. Don't worry, he took his granddaughter with him. The Thinker then puts Dr. Hormone and Janie to sleep until they need to be called upon again. And then the book was canceled. They have never appeared again. They have never shown back up again in any form. Oh my god. So Dr. Hormone gets both a regrettable and an approval. And I'm gonna explain why. So this is the League of Regrettable Superheroes. And this man is not a superhero. Listen, you do shit in war. You do some villainous shit in war. I'll fully agree to that. The villainous shit he did is before he went to war. He's one of those characters that just had an outlet to do terrible, terrible things and for it to be perfectly okay. All of which is done by medical experimentation, which is terrifying. This is a villain if I've ever heard one. But let me paint you a picture of a hypothetical story. Dr. Hormone, wartime superhero. Everybody loves him because he was able to dish out just as much pain to the bad guys as they were able to dish out to us. However, as time passes after the war, he doesn't stop doing terrible shit. And people slowly start to realize that this hero that they had so much faith in is actually just sick and sadistic. Slowly, people start to realize that he has always been a supervillain. He was just on our side for a little while. That is a good fucking idea. The problem is that that's not true. So he gets an approval because he's a great supervillain. He gets a seal of regret because he's a terrible, terrible superhero. You get one of you and one of you. Congratulations on our first double ranking, Dr. Hormone. Thanks for keeping Texas free of the Nazians. Now never show your face around here again. I have undertaken a task that I am not sure I can complete. So Scarlett's at work right now, and she has an appointment immediately after that. For a very long time now, we have been trying to replace this wardrobe with a regular dresser because, well, there's a window back there, and we just haven't been able to use this entire corner. What Scarlett doesn't know is that today, I bought a dresser on the way to the gym. Problem is, it's a big-ass dresser. It is currently 2 p.m. Her appointment is at 6 p.m. I need to get this thing broken down and a whole dresser in here in like 5 hours. Shut up if my math's not good. I'm doing other shit. Let's see what we can fucking do. I'm really bad at this whole content creator thing. I didn't record any of the middle bits. But it's gone now. Now I just need to clean up and wheel that big ass dresser in here, so. Whew, the fun of doing shit alone. I couldn't tell you how, but I did get the dresser from here to there, through this grass, down this step, up these stairs. Hi boys, how you doing? Through this area, and into that corner, all on my own. What can I say? I'm a god among men. In case you were wondering how old this thrifted dresser was. Anyway, where you belong. Now I gotta get all this in there and take this bad boy to the dump in like 50 minutes. So, and I'm cooking so far. It only took an hour to get this far. Okay, bit of a change of plans. So the dump nearest to me closes at about 4:30. Right now, it's about 3:30. And everything is still out on the fucking bed. So logically, it probably just makes the most sense to just fucking go tomorrow. Which means I did it. With the exception of, putting everything back in the fucking dresser. But I mostly did it. Now let's see if I can clean up in enough time. I still got about like, 3 hours? 3 hours, roughly. God, I am fucking dripping sweat. I want to tell you guys a story. It's October of 1988, and, it was just revealed that Jason Todd died. The month preceding this, in September of 1988, there was a number that you could dial to decide whether Jason Todd was going to live or die. A little bit of background for all of this. So this issue was written by Jim Starlin. Jim Starlin had also written the Batman series for a good number of issues at this point. And Jim Starlin did not like Robin as a character full set. He tried to avoid using him whenever possible, and whenever he was forced to use him, he really just kind of made Jason a little bit more disagreeable than other writers had made Robin in the past. Now, the editor at the time was a man by the name of Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil is a legend in the comic book space. He basically reinvented the Joker as a character. He's one of the creative minds behind Green Lantern, Green Arrow. He's a huge name. Now, Denny really disagreed with how Jim would characterize Robin. He didn't really like how Jim was using Robin in his books. But Denny also couldn't deny that the way that Jim was writing Robin was making it so that people were very disillusioned with the character. Jason just wasn't that popular, unfortunately. He would get a ton of letters where people just really didn't like him, or they were saying that he was a pale imitation of his successor, and all of these things. At the end of the day, nobody really liked Jason Todd at that moment. Or at least that's what it seemed like from an editor's point of view. Now, Jim wanted to just kill Robin off, but Denny didn't want to do that. So he reached a middle ground with Jim by proposing an idea. That idea was that, well, they were going to leave it to the fans, really. So Denny proposed a vote. Now, here's the thing. Denny didn't think that that vote was going to go the way it did. Pretty much nobody thought that that vote was going to go the way it did, because at the end of the day, that's a child. Nobody assumed that thousands of people were going to call in to
for lack of a better term, kill a kid. There was a lot of confusion around the outcome. Ultimately, 10,614 votes were cast. And of those 10,000, 5,343 were for Jason Todd's death. Now that sounds like a big number, but ultimately, the vote to kill him off was barely a portion of a percent over 50. The votes to not kill him were 5,271. The ratio was 50.34%. Yeah, the ratio was 50.34% for Jason Todd dying and 49.66% towards him not dying. So close that so much speculation popped up around this vote. People were wondering, was it rigged? People were wondering, was somebody calling in to add extra votes? Was something set up so that they knew they were going to kill Jason and they just wanted it to look close? There was a lot of questions around the validity of this vote. But at the end of the day, Jason Todd died, and it was by fan opinion that he was killed. Like I said before, nobody thought that was going to happen. Everybody was very taken aback by this, and it very much marked a turning point in the character of Batman and in the character of Robin proceeding into the next couple of years. Batman was already trending darker before this story, and this really cemented in that darker angle was going to stay. Earlier that same year, a month before Death in the Family was released, The Killing Joke came out. 2 years before Death in the Family was released, The Dark Knight Returns came out and predicted that Jason was going to die. It might have been where Jim got the idea to kill Jason. But all of this context aside, in October of 1988, Jason Todd died. Jason Todd died because people voted for him to die. And from that point on, Batman was tinged with a lot darker of an edge. A dark edge that we are only starting to see kind of fade now. And even then, not really fade, but just kind of evolve. And for a number of years, Jason Todd stayed dead. It was in fact a rule for a really long time that there were 3 deaths you could never undo in comics, and that was Bucky Barnes, Uncle Ben, and Jason Todd. But then they brought back Bucky Barnes. And then they brought back Jason Todd. Uncle Ben's still gone, but both of those got reversed. And I find it intriguing that the 2 deaths that were reversed were the 2 deaths of children that were cemented into comics. Especially because up until that point, that wasn't really something that you did. No real big major character deaths happened like that got reversed. I mean, the death of Superman hadn't come out yet. The whole, like, a character can only stay dead for a little while hadn't really been cemented into comics. If you died, you were dead. And that only started to really get walked back when the 2 kind of prodigal sons of that death were brought back. And given they were not brought back the way that they died. When Jason Todd was brought back into comics, at least in his first couple of appearances, he didn't get brought back as Robin. He didn't get brought back as the starry-eyed happy kid that showed up in Detective Comics. He was brought back really messed up by what happened to him. Same thing goes for Bucky Barnes. Ultimately, the deaths of both of them left lasting scars, not just on the characters themselves, but on the legacy of those characters, on the characterization of those characters, on how those characters are thought of, because you can't undo what happened to them. You can only adapt to what happened to them. But they did get brought back. They did eventually come back from those darkest moments. Those moments did eventually get changed, and they got put into a new context later on. If you told somebody before 2005 that your favorite character was Jason Todd, you'd get laughed out of a room. If you told somebody before the 2000s that your favorite character was Bucky Barnes, you'd probably get the same treatment. Given the events of today, I think it's pretty obvious to see the metaphor that I'm kind of going for here. It is really disheartening to know that so many people don't see the world the way you do. That they see it in a much more negative lens, and it's really hard to accept that people would literally vote for what seems like a net negative. But sometimes that's That's how the dice rolls. I'm not going to say that there weren't things that led to it. I'm not going to say that things couldn't have been done differently. I don't know. I talk about comics online. I'm not qualified to talk about much else. I do know that I'm scared. I do know that I'm worried. But I do know that looking at things in the past makes me feel better. I know that when I read superhero stories, when I read comics, it gives me hope that good can triumph over evil, even if that struggle is never ending, even when the odds seem stacked against you, even when the odds seem stacked against everybody, that ultimately good will triumph in the end. Now, I know that life doesn't work out like that a lot of the time. I know that that's not always the truth. And I know that sometimes those darker moments stick around for a very, very long time. And sometimes they literally never can be walked back. But if I can offer a word of advice, never lose hope. It's really hard to not feel hopeless in a context like this. It's really hard to not feel like the world is ending in a context like this. But what's truly important is that you don't lose hope, that you don't stop fighting. Because the only way that good can triumph over evil is if people fight for it. Right now, things seem extremely unsure. Right now, things seem really, really bad. And I don't want to overblow things, but I also don't want to undersell things. I mean, I am a self-employed, low-income, autistic, mentally ill queer man. There's a lot that goes into that. My fiance is also a low-income, chronically ill queer woman. It is a really scary time to be in the position that we are in. But the only thing that we can possibly do is try to keep moving forward, is try to hope for a better tomorrow and try to fight for that better tomorrow. Hope only gets you so far. In October of 1988, people voted for Jason Todd to die. Nobody expected it. Nobody was really prepared for it. But the vote happened, and that came to pass. But in 2005, he came back. And ever since then, he's been building himself back up. And I think that we can take a lot from that right now. Thanks for listening to my diatribe.
Okay, so I recently stumbled across something. Recently I made it my mission to read every comic that Jason Todd was in before his death. I'm trying to get a more complete picture of what Jason Todd was actually like before he died. And because of that, I went down to my local library and I picked up Batman the Caped Crusader, Volume 1. By the way, if you ever want to get into reading comics, the way that I got into reading comics was just by going down to the library and picking up what looked cool. So anyway, that's not the point of the video. This is gonna sound like a tangent, but stick with me. You know these kind of memes? These memes where they put male superheroes in like female superhero designs. The most famous example of this being the trend a little while back where people would replace all of the women in comics with Hawkeye in like scantily clad clothing to show how fucking ridiculous the poses and costuming are. Well, there's a super famous Batman villain that kind of already dresses like that. Or at least he used to. He did in his first appearance. And no, somehow I am not talking about Bane and his Pride Parade of henchmen over here. No, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Anatoly Knyazev, otherwise known as the KGBoost. Anatoly here is the most dangerous man alive. You see, he's an assassin for the KGB that is barely held together with just paper-mache strings of sanity. You can tell he's an assassin because he is pictured here slaying these go-go boots. This was signed off on by a writer's room full of straight men in the 80s. This is why it's fucking hilarious when you have a bunch of straight dudes that don't recognize just how colorful they're being. Now, did he get a much grittier, darker costume later? Yeah, of course he did. But the Submariner also started wearing pants eventually, so this doesn't really speak to much. Truly, it was a regression from the tactical brilliance of the completely open chest plate and exposed upper thighs. I love comics. I love comics. This shit is ridiculous. I love this shit. So for those of you who don't know, I have undertaken the challenge of reading every single Batman issue that Jason Todd was Robin in before his death. How much progress have I made? not much. I'm about 6 issues into Batman the Caped Crusader Volume 1, which is just the trade paperback version of Jim Starlin's run on Batman. However, I've learned a few lessons and I want to report back. Lesson number 1. So I undertook this because I wanted to see how Jason Todd was characterized before his death. And something that I had always heard and researched and read was that Jim Starlin really hated Robin. Which I can see is true, but in a weird way. It's less that he writes Robin bad, and more so like he doesn't write Robin at all. Like I said, I'm 6 issues in. This is 6 months worth of comic books, and like, Robin has appeared maybe 3 times, and he only really had a substantial appearance in this last issue. And given, in this last issue, he almost beats a pimp to death, and like, is portrayed as a lot more violent than Batman, but like, it's the first time he's really had more than like maybe 1 or 2 speaking lines since the beginning of this run. And also, it's incredibly in keeping with Jason's character that he has a very soft spot for like women and children being hurt specifically, and he beats a pimp half to death after he witnesses that pimp threaten to kill one of his girls. And then like later in the issue, he doesn't really show all that much remorse when like a proven serial killer of women gets murdered. Like specifically what the lady who kills the bad guy says is, it might not have been legal, but it was right. And Jason just goes, yeah, I'll buy that. And like, yeah, Batman berates him for it because like, oh, if people take the law into their own hands, it'll be total anarchy, says the Batman. But sure, yeah, the narrative frames him as wrong. So I can already see the seeds of what Jim Starlin is sowing here. Lesson number 2, however, actually has to do with Batman. Here's a really weird critique. When you reboot your universe, it might not be a good idea to have the official origin of a super popular character be written by an author with such a specific voice. What do I mean by that? Well, this entire trade, Jim Starlin's entire run, was post-Crisis on Infinite Earths. I know we're getting into deep fucking comic nerd shit, just stick with me. Post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is DC's big universal reboot, Batman's new first story was Batman Year One, which was written by Frank Miller. Now, if you've never read Frank Miller has a very specific style of writing. It's very broken up, small text boxes, very like noir detective style. But he also portrayed Batman as being like one slip away from being just as bad as the rest of his villains. He's the man who skirts the line between criminal and detective and is able to hold the city together where the police aren't able to. But because of that, Batman seems like he's in a lot less of a place of virtue. Like, he's not shy about the fact that he wants to kill people. Like, a good amount. Like, he straight up kills KGBoost. Like, that's how that story ends. He locks him in a sewer, turns away, and keeps the fucking door closed and doesn't tell anyone where he is. All of this to say, it might be more detrimental to a character if you give them such a specific voice in their very first issue. Or at the very least, if you have a writer with a very specific voice take control of their very first issue, because then every writer after that has to mimic that writer's style, and sometimes the nuances don't come through. Batman in the Jim Starlin run seems exceedingly violent. Like, he's mostly a detective and mostly sticks to the law. Like, this feels a little pre-crisis here and there, but he also, his inner monologue sounds very violent. So violent that when Robin does violent shit, it feels hypocritical that Batman gets on him for it. I don't know, that's my check-in. I'll probably do another one of these once I wrap up with the entire story, and then when I read, Detective Comics, which is infamously Jason's good run. Anyways, yeah, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So I just finished The Diplomat's Son. It's probably the most infamous Jason Todd story to take place before his death, and I want to talk about it. Just a bit of a heads up, I have a lot to say, so this one's probably going to be a bit of a longer one. Feel free to double speed. For those of you who haven't read, let me explain what happens in The Diplomat's Son. Diplomat's Son is a 2-issue story that primarily focuses on Jason Todd, Batman, Jim Gordon, and a character by the name of Felipe Garzonas. The story starts off pretty heavy. It starts with Jason Todd catching Felipe Garzonas in his apartment in the act of actively assaulting a woman. We know that he kidnapped her, we know that he beat her up, we don't know anything else, but it's heavily implied. Batman and Robin take down Felipe and his bodyguard, and they take him to jail. Well, they try to, because they find out that Felipe is actually the son of a ambassador, meaning that Felipe has diplomatic immunity, and he walks free 45 minutes later. Now this, understandably, does not sit very well with Jason Todd, who was infamous for having a soft spot for women and children. Batman at this time was operating a lot more like a just kind of officially licensed superhero, so he worked a lot more within the bounds of the law. So Batman essentially goes, well, there's nothing we can really do that's inside the law. However, Felipe is involved with narcotics, so if we catch him on, like, narcotics charges, he can be thrown out of the country and sent back to his home country, basically in disgrace. Robin is like, that doesn't sound like much of a punishment. And Batman goes, well, it's kind of the best we got, so we're gonna do that. They tail Felipe for a while, and eventually they catch him in the act of buying a shit ton of drugs. They nab him, they bring him back to Gotham Central, and he does get released an hour later, but now the FBI has gotten involved, and Garzonas does need to leave the country. On Felipe's way out, Robin decides to crack one at him and just says, have a nice trip, scumbag. I also forgot to mention, Robin begs him to resist arrest so that he can get a chance to beat the living shit out of this man when they take him in the second time. Felipe knows that Robin fucking hates his guts, and he knows exactly why. So Felipe goes, un momento, and walks over to the phone and makes a call to Gloria, the woman that he was beating in the first place. And he just tells her, I'll see you later tonight. We'll talk about it then. Robin loses his shit. He's like, you fucking animal, how dare you? And Felipe walks out. Now everybody in the room knows exactly what's going to happen, so they immediately try and call Gloria, but she's not picking up the phone. Batman and Robin try to bolt to the apartment as fast as possible, but they're too late. But it's not because Felipe got there first. It's because Gloria couldn't take the thought of Felipe coming to get her again. I can't say what she did on this app, but you know what she did. While making arrangements, Batman realizes that Robin has left, and he knows exactly where he's going because Felipe went back to his apartment. Now, we see exactly what Batman sees here, and this is why this is one of the most infamous Jason Todd stories of all time. Robin shows up on Felipe's porch, and then Batman shows up as Felipe is falling 20 stories to his death. Batman finds Jason on the balcony and demands to know what happened, to which Jason does not respond. So Batman asks again, Robin, did he fall or was he pushed? And Robin just says, I guess I spooked him. He slipped. And Robin swings away. Sometime later, Batman gets an envelope that is specifically directed to him. Inside is a picture of Jim Gordon tied up at a scrapyard. Now the note tells Batman to bring the kid and is addressed from a bereaved father. Batman knows who this is. Batman also knows what this guy wants to do. So he doesn't tell Jason. And he just goes. Problem is, Jason can pick up on the fact that Batman is acting fucking weird. So he sneaks into the Batmobile's trunk and follows along. Batman takes out all of the guys who are at the scrapyard and approaches Jose Garzonas, who is Felipe's father. Jose is entirely planning to kill Gordon and Batman and Robin if he can find him. And right as he is about to shoot Batman, Robin appears out of nowhere, throws a dart, and disarms Jose. In the scuffle, Gordon is able to get away, although he takes a bullet to the wing. Batman and Jose kind of have a standoff where Batman has to run from Jose with an Uzi by climbing up a tower of cars, which ultimately falls over onto Jose, killing him. While that was happening, Robin took out the other guys, and when he sees Batman, he goes, hey, what was this? What was going on here? And Batman responds with this. A lot of stupidity and some deaths, all wrapped up in a father's righteous anger. Robin responds, who was that guy with the Uzi? To which Batman responds, his name was Jose Garzonas. He was Felipe's father, Robin. For every action in this universe, there is an opposite and equal reaction. Consequences, Robin. There is no escaping them. And the next page has absolutely zero dialogue, and Robin comes to understand what just happened. And this is the last story in the Batman comic before Death in the Family. Now that you guys are completely caught up, I want to fucking talk about this story, because it's very obvious what this story is trying to do, but it hilariously fails. They're trying to set Robin up as being too much of a loose cannon to be trusted. They're trying to make it seem like he is angry and violent and he is willing to kill, and Batman isn't. But Robin is fully willing to break the only code that Batman really holds himself to, in order to seek his own version of justice, which Batman does not agree with and has stated multiple times that he doesn't agree with. That's the goal of this story. Now here's all the places where it fucking fails. 1. Felipe is an irredeemable monster. Literally, I get that the point of the story is literally making him so fucking bad that it feels justified, and then making you realize that a child just maybe committed murder. But like, we don't know that. Batman doesn't know that. Nobody in the story knows that. Punishing Jason for a maybe is fucking insane. Batman literally says in the next issue, how could I possibly carry on with Jason as my partner? Which I have to say is just a teensy bit hypocritical considering the number of actual deaths that Batman is directly responsible for in these 2 issues alone. Oh yeah, nobody talks about the fact that Batman is directly responsible for 4 people at minimum being dead by the end of this book. And I'm not even counting Felipe. Number 1, Gloria. You want to know how I know that? Batman states verbatim earlier in the issue where she dies that there are multiple times that they could have caught Felipe on possession, but he didn't do it because he wanted to catch Felipe's dad more. Oh, Panda, you might say. That's a little bit of a stretch, don't you think? Alright, that's fair. That's fair. I'll grant you that. How about the time that he jumps out of the way of 2 Uzis, causing 2 people to fucking shoot each other? To which his only response is, I'd hope to end this without any more deaths. And body number 4 is Jose Garzonas. Yeah, you want to know why that fucking tower falls? It's because Bruce scrambles up it and then makes the top heavy, which it then collapses onto Jose. Yeah, Batman states that he could have stepped out of the way, that Jose could have moved and the tower wouldn't have fallen on him. But at the end of the day, it did. He's dead! And then Batman lords that over Jason like it's Jason's fault. Which, I might state again, fully assumes that he killed Felipe. Which, again, he has 0 evidence for! At all! That is entirely an assumption! This book is legitimately fucking baffling to me. Because, yeah, I can see where they were trying to go. They were trying to set Jason up as the kid who's gonna fly off the handle. The angry one that can't control his emotions, that's going to break Batman's one rule the second that he feels it's justified. Which, like, we can't possibly know if he is. Because we didn't see it. Because Batman didn't fucking see it. The literal only time that we see Jason be violent up until this point is when he is beating up that pimp I talked about in my previous video. That's it! And even then, he doesn't actually try and kill him. Batman just goes, hey, ease up, man. What are you trying to do? Kill him? To which Jason's response is, would it really have been that big of a loss if I had? That's it. That is the only piece of evidence that we have that Jason even has the capacity to kill. Which, by the way, Batman in this series has killed multiple times directly. Do I need to bring up KGBoost? Do I need to bring up him locking him in a sewer and then telling nobody? Oh, right. I also forgot to mention the fact that Bruce didn't bring up Felipe after the initial, questioning. He didn't ask him about it. He didn't talk about it. He didn't do any of that. He just went, yeah, he probably did it. Guess I can't have him as my partner anymore. Time to stonewall him and act like nothing's wrong. How is this meant to make me not agree with Robin? What the fuck? Batman does nothing but blame shit on Jason that he didn't fucking do, berate him for not being skilled enough, and then blame him for a death that he has 0 evidence that he committed. All while being entirely hypocritical and acting like that's not a big deal. Holy shit, fuck this dude. Thank you for coming to my Todd Talk. Holy shit! So I just read the comic book version of A Death in the Family. Let's talk about it. Now, if you're watching my video, I'm assuming you know what happens in A Death in the Family. But just as a quick refresher, Jason Todd, the second Robin, is put on a temporary retainer after a hot streak of being
rebellious and angry and violent. In this time, he discovers that the person that he thought was his real mother was actually his stepmother, and that his real mother might be out there in the world somewhere. Using their names in the back computer, he tracks down the 3 women that could potentially be his mother and sets out to go and find them. At the same time, the Joker breaks out of prison and goes to sell a nuclear warhead to some terrorists in the same part of the world. Batman knows that Jason has run away. He also knows that the Joker has a warhead, so he tracks down the Joker because that's kind of a bigger threat right now. Batman and Robin run into each other in the Middle East. They fill each other in on where they're at. They stop the Joker and track down the first 2 women, both of which end up being duds. Then they set out to find the 3rd woman, who is named Sheila Haywood, who is Jason's biological mother. However, she is also in league with the Joker because he is blackmailing her with information about a botched schmortion that happened back in Gotham that resulted in a dead girl. Batman leaves Jason to be with his mother to really just reconnect. Jason finds out about Sheila being in bed with the Joker. He tries to save her. She turns on him, turns him into the Joker. Joker beats Robin half to death with a crowbar, realizes that that might have been a bad idea, ties up Sheila, sets the warehouse to explode, and leaves. Warehouse explodes maybe a minute before Batman's able to get there. Both Sheila and Jason are killed in the blast. Sheila a little bit afterwards, long enough that she is able to tell Batman that Joker is responsible. Batman then sets out to find and stop the Joker, but Joker has become the Iranian ambassador for some reason. Joker tries to Joker gas the UN, but with the help of Superman, Batman is able to stop him, the entire time debating if he is actually going to kill this man. Batman chases Joker into a helicopter, where some stray gunfire hits both Joker, Batman, and the pilot. Batman is saved by Superman. Batman then tells Superman to go and find Joker's body in the crash or he's gonna get away, and Joker gets away. And that's the end of the story. Now, why do I want to talk about this story? So I've discussed in my last 2 videos that it's really obvious that Jim Starlin is trying to set Robin up for failure. With the diplomat's son, he's kind of setting the groundwork that Robin will fly off the handle in anger, even though that's never been a portion of his character up until this point. In fact, Jim Starlin's barely wrote Robin this entire time. In fact, they even bring up in this story that one of Robin's big first story arcs was tracking down Two-Face, who is the guy who killed his dad. Yeah, Willis Todd being a Penguin goon is actually like a DC Rebirth thing. He used to be a Two-Face goon. Two-Face killed him. And they bring up in this story that Jason tracked down Two-Face and looked like he was going to beat the shit out of him and then just walked away and let Two-Face be taken in. And like, yeah, sure, Jason's had kind of a touchy nerve when it comes to Two-Face in like the series before this, but like the same way that Bruce has had a touchy nerve about Joe Chill. However, in this story, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of like Starlin's trying to, gaslight the audience. He keeps making references to the fact that Jason has been on a violent streak, that he's been darker, that he's been moodier. Which, like, no, he hasn't. We have him beating up one pimp, and then the diplomat's son incident. And that's it. And then this story starts. Like, I'm not using any of the examples from this story because it's very obvious that this story kind of assumes that you agree. I don't know. It's a weird take. It's a very weird take. It's very obvious that Jim Starlin is trying to be like, see, I told you, he's violent. He's a really violent, fucked up dude. And that's another thing. Jason is not really portrayed as a kid in this. If I showed you this drawing, how old do you think Jason is? Would you guess 15? It is very obvious through pretty much this entire series that both of the artist and the writer are trying to make Jason older so that when he gets beaten to death and killed at the end of this, it's somewhat less shocking. But like, we know because of issues that come out after this, when Jason dies, he is 5'3" and 15 years old. I know it's pretty common to draw characters older than what they actually say they are, but like, this is a bit of a stretch, right? I feel as I'm reading this that Jason is kind of set up to fail the entire time. They state from the beginning how violent Jason is. And in fact, this entire storyline opens with Jason like jumping the gun and almost fucking up a raid because of him being violent. They even have a moment where Batman's like, what do you think this is, a game? And he's like, of course I do. All of life's a game. Which, like, that hasn't been Jason's personality at all up to this point. Like, it's really hard reading this with the benefit of hindsight because I know that Jason in the future is going to be characterized a lot like this. This is going to be what the public perception of Jason Todd is for the foreseeable future, as the angry one that'll fly off the handle, the one that is in it for the love of the fucking game. But that's not how he's been characterized at all up until this point. Hell, any characterization we're given is either just basic bland Robin, or if he shows up in any issues outside of the Cape Crusader run, it's a lot more like starry-eyed kid who just got the job of his life. He doesn't start being portrayed in a sort of questionable way until, like, the diplomat son, honestly. Like, up until that point, there's, like, a moment here or there, but no more than, like, Dick Grayson, who has, like, an infamous hot streak. Like, granted, I'll also admit that I am definitely a biased source here. I'm Jason Todd's #1 fanboy. But, like, I don't get the hate up until this story. Like, if you were reading just this story and then given the vote, yeah, I get it. That Jason seems like a piece of shit through this story. They don't really highlight any of his personality traits that really make him stand out from everybody else. They don't highlight any of the things that make him enjoyable or fun to read. They just highlight the parts that Jim Starlin has decided are the main parts of Jason Todd, which is that he is angry and violent and unpredictable. But even then, even in this story, Jason Todd gets really heroic moments that are really questionable as to why we're doing this at all. Like, Jason Todd doesn't try and escape after he gets beat. He frees Sheila and says, run, and falls over, even though he knows the building's gonna explode. Like, he sacrifices himself. He even then, it's confirmed that he actually sacrificed himself even more because he threw himself in front of the blast to try and protect Sheila. Even in a story that is so obviously trying to villainize this character to make it justifiable for people to vote him off at the end, he is portrayed as being rather heroic because it's impossible to fully write those things out of his character. Like, yes, he's doing things selfishly. Yes, he's doing things that only benefit him and are at the detriment of others. But at the exact same time, he does do extremely heroic deeds. Like, he genuinely lives to be a hero. The second he hears that his mother is in danger, he immediately hops into gear and immediately goes, I need to handle this. Batman tells him multiple times, do not get involved. The Joker is not someone you want to fuck with. And he goes, I hear you, I get it. That's my mother in there. And admittedly, to Starlin's credit, Batman does, essentially, as soon as the Joker thing is handled, he helps Jason the entire time. Like, yeah, dude, Joker's got a nuke. I need to handle that. But the second that is handled, I am all with you. Hell, there's a moment in this where Batman uses truth serum on Lady Shiva and admits that this is, like, super against his code to drug somebody for information, but it's for Jason, and it's information that Jason needs to feel like a whole person, so he's willing to do it. However, I will also say, for killing off one of the biggest fucking parts of Batman's mythos, the story doesn't really linger on it too long. It doesn't feel like we're given any time to mourn Jason. Like, there's a preemptive mourning before we find him, but that's about the extent of it. Essentially, the entire comic where we find out he's dead is like a clip show. It's like all of Jason's moments that led up to this exact moment before we find his body. But then after that, we're immediately back to hunting down the Joker. There's not any time to really sit and stew in the fact that Robin just died. And not just died, Robin was killed. I'm not sure if it's because we had to do this in 4 issues. I'm not sure if it's because they didn't want to make the people who voted feel bad. But it feels really weird because, like, we find the body of Robin and then, like, we have like a 1-page funeral. And then after that, it's just fucking vengeance time. I don't know. I can't say that I enjoyed it, but I also can't say that I didn't enjoy it. No, I can say that I didn't enjoy it. I didn't really enjoy reading it, mostly because it highlights all of the elements of Jason Todd that will be taken into the future that I don't super appreciate. Mostly because they don't rear their head until, like, this story, and maybe the one preceding it barely. Next up on the docket is reading all of his Detective Comics run, which is apparently the good run of Jason Todd, so I am excited for that one. Thank you for coming to my Todd Talk.
Bruce, I forgive you for not saving me. But why? Why on God's earth? Is he still alive?
I'm sorry, do you want me to be serious here, or?
I want you to be serious. Yes, Bruce, I want you to be serious right now. If he had done what he did to me, to you, I would have done nothing but search the earth for this death-worshipping piece of garbage!
I love you too, Sugar Plum.
Okay, yep, totally. I get that, totally. Have you tried? Excuse you?
Have you tried to kill him yet?
Is he being serious?
I'm gonna be honest with you, Junior. I don't know.
Got it. Great. What the fuck does that mean?
Okay, so no, you haven't. Alright, cool. Do it. What? Do it. Cap his ass. Shoot him. I'm gonna go with Junior here and say, what?
You want me to shoot him?
I want someone to shoot. Give me the gun. I'll do it.
What is going on right now? This should be a lot harder than it is.
Come on, son. You decapitated like 11 people 3 days ago. Fucking do it. This has got to be some sort of test.
There, you happy? Jesus, you was that so hard all of this time and it was that easy?
I don't know what you're talking about, Easy. There's nothing there.
Okay, what the fuck is that supposed to... What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Take as long as you need with this.
I just shot him! He hit the floor! Where the fuck did he go?
You see that shit? That shit right there? That happens every fucking time.
There's not even a blood stain! It's just gone!
Yeah, like 2 days after you died, I chased him into a helicopter where he got shot like 6 times. The helicopter exploded and crashed into the ocean, and his body was gone before Superman could find it.
Oh my god, I don't understand how this is even fucking possible!
He's like a cryptid, dude. I don't fucking get it.
Oh my god! That ominous shit happens to me! I don't know, dude! Dude, fuck whatever's going on here. That is some fucking bullshit! Thank you! Finally someone gets...
I've been doing this thing for a little while where I've been downloading my back catalog so I could post it on different platforms because the obvious reasons. And it is just staggering seeing not only how long I've been doing this, but like what content I've been making. It's just fucking weird, man. Shout out to Grandma Raven, Cherry Pick Comics, and Mo for helping me out with the breakdown because, oh my god, they went through and categorized every single video that I've ever posted. And they deserve so much props. Anyway, welcome back to Regrettable Superhero of the Week, the weekly not weekly show where I pick one character out random out of the League of Regrettable Superheroes and then I run them the fuck down. Let's see who we are getting today. I'm really hoping for somebody fun. I really need someone fun after this week. The Sentinels? The Sentinel? Didn't they just get a book? I could have swore I just saw a video about this. Yeah, I stand corrected. What the hell is going on here? What in the forehead is that? My good man, I don't mean to alarm you, but it does seem like it is terminal, and we are going to have to cut it out of your forehead. Also, there seems to be 2 caterpillars growing on your face. Are you okay? Are they musicians? There's no way that these guys are just musicians. There is no way that they're musicians, right? That is a broken bottle thrown shard end first towards this lid. That is going to... Oh my god! I see a song at the bottom of the description and I am very worried. Okay, the Sentinels were created by Gary Friedrich and Sam Granger in Thunderbolt Volume 3, number 54 of Charlton Comics in October of 1966. Hey, that means DC own these guys now. So the Sentinels are, well, they're a protest band. I'm sorry, the actual band name is The Protesters. Yes, really. And they are an up-and-coming trio of protest musicians in the 1960s. Their whole gimmick is that they wear domino masks. And that's it. That is until their landlord, Mrs. Jones, who's secretly named Mrs. Kolotov because she is actually a Russian scientist, gifts upon them supersuits which grant them superhuman abilities. Specifically, flight, strength, and telepathy. Can you guess which one got which? And on her deathbed, Mrs. Kolotov gives them one goal. Fight communism. Yeah, they don't really do that. They're not great at that. See, they're an up-and-coming rock group, so they're trying to, you know, get their foot in the door. Apparently, they only really ever fight one supervillain called the Mindbender, and they're not even really good at that. The frontman gets hit on the head during one of their missions and loses his memory for a third of their issues. I'm gonna be honest, I think this is actually a pretty good idea. I think this could be pretty cool. Except for the fact that I genuinely don't think it should be a comic book. Here's the problem. This is a great idea for an independent show of some kind, but music never really translates to this visual art form very well. Because you only really have the option of drawing characters in singing poses, reading the lyrics. Like, unless you have an audio recording, you can't hear what their music sounds like, so it's kind of just poetry. I think this would be a great idea if it wasn't a comic. So, like, I don't really know what they can do with this. Like I said, DC owns these guys now, but, like, they're just in a weird position, you know? However, they were very short-lived. This is a comic book, and this is one of the main characters. So, you know, I hate to say it, Sentinels, but you are regrettable. You know, the fact that they just have super suits means that this dude just kind of looks like that, and that's really unfortunate. Tim Drake is a terrible Robin. Hold on, before you comment, let me explain. Like many of you, I am sure my first introduction to Robin was through Tim Drake. Some of the first comics that I read were the Teen Titans run, where he was in charge. The Robin in Teen Titans is wearing Tim Drake's costume, even though they say he's Dick Grayson, apparently. The Robin in the new Batman Adventures is said to be Tim Drake, even though that's obviously Jason Todd's origin and personality, but whatever, that's Tim Drake. Fuck, two of my favorite suits of all time are Tim Drake costumes, so like, I'm not saying Tim Drake's a bad character. However, Scarlet did open my eyes to the fact that he's not great as Robin, as in Batman's partner, Robin the Boy Wonder. In terms of actually working alongside and with Batman on multiple adventures, Tim Drake's not there very much. Like, sure, he's active in Gotham at the exact same time, but he doesn't really work directly alongside Batman all that much. If anything, he works more so as Batman's, like, partner, like, absolute equals partner. So much so that the New 52 made that, like, part of his opening agreement. That Tim Drake's Robin was not Batman's sidekick, but his partner and equal, which is, like, not his original origin and not the intent, but sure, whatever. So when it comes to being a sidekick to a bigger superhero, Tim Drake doesn't really fit that role very well. You know what role he does fit great, though? As someone who is connected to the Bat family that works alongside but mostly independently from Batman, while still being active at the same time as Batman, who has two living parents. So, like, I'm just saying, Tim Drake fits the mold of a Batgirl fucking great. And credit where it's due, Scarlet was the one that shed the light on this. I did not come up with this idea. But, like, the more I think about it, yeah, that kind of fits.
Dead man walking! Dead man walking!
Yeah, that wasn't funny the first 5 times.
2 times, boy chick. That makes 3. Comedy's best in 3s. Like Batman, Robin, and me.
Yes, we are one big happy family.
I like to think so.
And speaking of relations, it leads us to the $24,000 question. Which, believe it or not, Lazarus, is not why you're not still worm food, but why I am still among the sweaty masses. Why, I should be having pillow fights with St. Peter by now.
The real joke is that you think you'd go to heaven.
Stay on point, short pants. You used your little detective mojo, found me, and then, well, I do declare, whooped me so within an inch of my life. Then you had those sawbones that patch up leg breakers, put me on the mend, and cut me loose.
Those guys were veterinarians. I couldn't pay the mafia medics enough to touch you.
On point, zombie! You nearly punched old Jokey's time card and sent me up to the big funhouse in the sky.
Again with the heaven.
You let me live. After everything I did, you couldn't pop my balloon. You just couldn't. The apple doesn't tumble too far from the paterfamilias, now does it? You're just like Daddykins.
You know why I love shoulder wounds? 1, they really hurt. 2, they can bleed you out and you'll be dead in minutes. And 3, they really hurt. And 4, they are easy to patch. You couldn't be more wrong about me. If Wright were a country on Earth, you'd be circling on the edge of the Milky Way. Yeah, I let you live. But like always, like every damned minute of your addled, posturing, psychotic life, you think that this is about you. You're a worm.
I've pitched you on a hook and dropped you into the brine. And I beat the hell out of you, Pagliacci, because it was just too much fun not to.
Oh. Somebody has slipped into a new coat. You're not just wearing my old hoodie pajamas, no. No, you saw that it's more fun on my side of the street.
It'd be sad if you deserved sympathy. Listen to me, Joker. I'm not you. I'm nothing like you. I know what I do, and I know why I do it. You are, clinically speaking, a whack job. But I know a secret. A good one.
Loves me a secret. Do tell.
You're not nearly as crazy as you'd like us all to believe. Or even as crazy as you'd like to believe. It just makes it easier to justify every sick, monstrous thing you've ever done when you play the part of the mad clown. You're crazy, Bubba. But you ain't that crazy. Look at that. I wiped a smile off Joker's face. I have been waiting a long time for that.
That is going to be it for this month. I just want to say thank you to all of my lovely, lovely patient patrons over on Patreon. Amanda Barnstead, Andrea Lanowitz, Anthea Yu, Bill Bro, Brandon Bilbrey, Carol Cowett, Christopher Bosgard, Definitely Not 5 Gene Stealers in a Trench Coat, Dee Dee, Dragonfang, Gamer X, In Japan, Jacob Safel, Jake Williamson, Jeffrey of Isles, Cat Q, Kyle Rayner, Magoo, Midnight Ace Evergreen, Mr. Nobody 13, Noah, Knox, Oplin, Righteous Duke, Shadow Spike, Simply Smithy Jr., Silver Bullets 23, Tangled Web, and the Brain Teaser, as well as all of my other lovely, lovely patrons over on Patreon. And if you too want your name read out in the credits of every one of the videos that I do over here on YouTube, then head on over to Patreon and subscribe for $15 or more. Or, if you just want to be generous, even $1 helps.